Every summer, schools across the country just stop. You were told it was for farming. That is false. The real culprit was heat that scared a whole century. Farm children were never needed in summer. They were needed in spring for planting and in autumn for harvest. Summer was the slow season on a farm. The corn grew by itself. Nobody needed a 9-year-old for that. So the official story collapses in the first minute and something stranger hides underneath. Here's the truly odd part. In the 1800s, many city schools barely took a summer break at all. Some ran nearly the entire year, even through July. Why should you care? Because this one decision still shapes your life. Childcare panic, forgotten math, that enormous August dread, 50 million students walking out the door each June. All of it starts with this buried choice. So I investigated because humans clearly were not going to. I found 4 suspects: a cow myth, an endless school year, a great escape, and melting brains. Yes, melting brains. The last suspect is the strangest. Also, remember the cows. Humans blamed the cows for a century. The cows will matter at the end. 10 weeks of silence every single year from a species obsessed with productivity. That is not an accident. That is a buried story. Let us dig it up. Part 1. The Cow Alibi. For over a century, humans explained summer vacation with one tidy sentence. Kids were needed on the farm. Case closed, apparently. It sounds perfect. America used to be mostly farms. Farms need labor. Children have hands. Therefore, school stops in summer. Teachers repeated it. Textbooks repeated it. One problem: actual farm calendars. Planting happens in spring. Harvest happens in fall. Those are the 2 moments a farm desperately needs every available hand. So rural schools did the obvious thing. They ran a summer term and a winter term and let children out in spring and autumn instead. In 1800s Massachusetts, plenty of rural districts schooled children straight through summer. Attendance dipped at planting and harvest, exactly when the myth says nothing happened. Picture it: a one-room schoolhouse, packed in July. Wheat waving outside, perfectly fine on its own. The cows, I note, also fine on their own. Historian Kenneth Gold dug through old school records and found exactly this pattern across the countryside. The farming explanation is not simplified history. It is backwards history. So if farm kids were sitting in class in July, who exactly was leaving school in summer? Not country children, someone else entirely. The trail leads away from the farms and into the cities. And what I found in the city records made my whiskers twitch. The schools there never stopped. Part 2, the school year that never ended. While farm kids studied in July, city kids were trapped in something far more extreme: a nearly endless calendar. In 1842, New York City schools were open about 248 days a year. Detroit and Philadelphia ran similar marathons. For comparison, a modern American school year runs about 180 days. City children back then theoretically got almost no break at all. Theoretically. Because here is the twist: attendance was not required. School was open the way a shop is open. You wandered in when it suited your family. So wealthy families pulled their children out for months. Poor children came and went between jobs. Classrooms swelled and emptied like a tide. Teachers simply endured. Buffalo children could attend school essentially year-round. Some districts even bragged about it. More school meant more civilization, the thinking went. The children disagreed quietly. Imagine running a business where customers appear randomly for 248 days. Even I find that chaotic, and I knock things off tables professionally. Reformers hated this mess. They wanted order, attendance laws, one proper calendar. But before they could build one, they had to face the real monster of the century. That monster was not a myth, and it was not a cow. It was the thermometer, and in an American summer, the thermometer always won. Part 3. The Great Escape. Now add the missing ingredient: heat. A 19th century city in summer was an oven built from brick, horses, and questionable smells. No air conditioning existed, no electric fans, buildings packed tight, streets full of manure, rivers full of worse. July in Manhattan was genuinely dangerous. Disease loved it. Cholera and typhoid spread fastest in the hot months. Anyone with money did the sensible thing. They left. In 1896, one 10-day heatwave killed around 1,500 people in New York alone. The city handed out free ice, too late for many. So every June, wealthy families fled the city for mountains, lakes, and seaside resorts. Picture the map. Arrows streaming out of every major city all summer long, their children left with them, so urban classrooms in July sat half empty. Teachers taught rows of vacant desks while their students summered beside a lake. The middle class copied the rich as the middle class does. The summer exodus grew every decade. Cities in August belong to the poor and the stubborn. I respect an animal that migrates to avoid discomfort. Cats invented that. But watch what happens next, because the doctors are about to say something ridiculous. The empty seats made summer school easy to cut, but humans wanted a nobler reason than rich people at a beach. Medicine happily provided one. Part 4, The Melting Brain. This is the strangest suspect as promised. 19th century doctors believed that studying in summer could genuinely damage a child. The theory went like this: the brain was a muscle. Overworking it caused illness, nervous exhaustion, sometimes even insanity. Summer heat supposedly made the strain worse. Doctors warned that too much school would ruin the youth of the nation. Parents believed them. Rest became a prescription, and summer became the dose. Educators quoted physicians. Physicians quoted worry. Nobody quoted evidence because there was none. But the panic gave summer break a respectable scientific costume. Enter the reformers. Men like Horace Mann wanted every school in the country on one standard calendar. City years were too long, rural terms too scattered. So they cut a deal, trim the endless urban year, stretch the short rural terms, and park the shared break in summer when classrooms emptied anyway. Teachers loved it. They finally got time to rest and retrain. The new vacation industry loved it more and lobbied hard for long summer holidays. So decade by decade, the school calendar shrank toward the modern year. Watch the bar fall from nearly year-round down to about 180 days. By around 1900, summer vacation was standard across American cities, built from heat, empty seats, and imaginary brain fevers. Not one cow involved. Part 5. The answer: 4 suspects walked in: cows, calendars, heat, and imaginary brain fevers. So why do school years really have summer vacation? One plain sentence as promised. Schools close in summer because hot 19th century cities emptied out. The wealthy fled, classrooms sat half full, and reformers standardized that leftover gap into a national habit. Not farming. Farming was the cover story invented later because it sounded wholesome and nobody checked the planting calendar, and it stuck. Once summer camps, resorts, and family routines grew around the break, no politician could touch it. Habits harden into infrastructure given enough Augusts. That is why your childhood had those long, strange summers. Why parents plan entire years around July. Why the math quietly leaked out of your head by September. Researchers call that leak summer learning loss. Students can lose about a month of progress over one break. The ghost of 1896 still eating homework. So humans built a whole season of freedom on heat panic and fake brain medicine, then kept it out of habit. Honestly, one of your better accidents. And the cows? The cows were innocent. They were framed by a century of textbooks. Somebody owes those cows an apology. I will be in a sunbeam, resting my enormous brain before it melts. Subscribe, or do not. I am a cat.